Is it possible for there to be two world currencies? XRP might be one of them. This question has an answer from David Schwartz. On the XRP ledger, David Schwartz talks about what will happen next with DeFi. I'm going to play you some of my favorite David Schwartz videos and talk about them with you. I really want you to be open to what the future holds for the XRP community. Let's begin this way. This video lasts for 3 minutes. There's no movie here, that's all. The person asking the question is David Schwartz, and the person replying is also David Schwartz. Let's go. Yes. Do you think it's possible for two world reserve currencies to exist at the same time? Yes, I believe that is possible. A lot of places around the world are probably done with using the dollar as their main currency. I believe that many of these places are ready to try something new. As I said before, I don't think this will happen soon. But one of my wildest hopes for the success of a digital asset is that countries will start to understand that the US dollar won't always be the reserve currency. Other things will be the money that is kept in reserve. People would tell me, why would a bank buy your software when they could use something that was made by banks? This is what we saw with banks when we first started selling software to them. What they didn't know was that there are only 10 banks in the world, and Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Credit Suisse, and JP Morgan Chase are the ones that would build a system that the whole world would use. The other 6,000 smaller banks are their biggest and toughest rivals, and they really dislike those things the most. They would not want to use the system that they built and keep up because it would favor them over their biggest and strongest rivals. I believe countries could also go through the same thing. Before we go any further, I want to quickly highlight what David Schwartz has to say. The world's biggest banks, the ones he named, make a lot of money by letting other banks use their lines. They are in charge and have power. They have the most to lose. That's what gets me excited about this. The 6,000 other banks he mentioned, there may be a few more, are looking for ways to say no to the big guy who wants to charge them millions of dollars a year to use their rails. We found something that is 80% cheaper, settles instantly, meets all of our needs, uses a trusted blockchain and Ripple's technology, and lets us use ODL, right? Medium-sized banks, small banks, and credit unions can all use this in a lot of different ways. There could be a lot of options here. It seems like every country would love for its currency to be the world's main currency. That has helped the US, that has grown the US economy by huge amounts over many years. And every other country would say, yeah, we'd like the world to be the world reserve currency. But the US keeping its position, along with maybe the EU, Russia, and one or two other countries, is the only one that could pull it off. Most countries, though, know that if there is going to be a new world reserve currency that is also their own currency, it won't be them. Because of this, they might actually like a currency that no one can control better than one that is run by their biggest political enemies. So that's what I think is the best case situation for a digital asset to do well. If these countries say, okay, well, the US dollar can't last forever, but it's not going to be our currency, then no one will want to go through what happened with the US dollar again. No one but the EU wants the EU to take the place of the dollar, right? No one but Russia wants the ruble to take the place of the dollar. No one but China wants the yuan to take the place of the dollar, which means they might be able to agree on a currency that no one could control instead of one that was run by their biggest global enemy. If you want a case of success, I think that's the most likely one. How do you get everyone to agree, though? That's the important thing. Well, they might agree if the option is that their geopolitical rivals force a new currency to replace the dollar that isn't the dollar. Like when they get rid of an old boss and replace them with a new one. As for cryptocurrency people getting rich, I don't think that will happen if the choice is no boss. I think they'll see that as too much of a bad thing. The US dollar is losing value all over the world right now. Countries have looked for other countries to trade with because of things like trade wars and inflation. The US dollar won't be the most important currency for much longer. After that, where do you go? There is no stopping Russia's economy from going down. In general, their interest rate is between 25% and 30%. There are a lot of bankruptcies. Right now, you don't want to hold rubles. China is printing trillions of dollars just to keep things stable after the crash of their real estate market. Factories are closing down and people can't even find work. You are aware that you do not wish to visit the UN. There are countries that don't want to use the euro, even though it might be the best option here. Could you use something digital then? Could you use something that doesn't help any country or government? That's where XRP could really help, and I think that's what David was trying to say. That's one of my favorite clips. We should talk more and more about the idea of never selling our XRP and the XRP lending protocol. This whole DeFi layer is being built on the XRP ledger so that people can give and borrow XRP. So far, the EDM sidechain has really opened all of these doors and given us new skills. We are now going through them live. Let me play this. All funding happens on the ledger. If you want to fund a loan, you could put money into one of these lending pools. Then, as the loan balance is paid off, you could get money directly from the ledger. You could also pay back the loans with something of value. As payment, you could use your share of the money that was paid. So the people who own these loan pools would have a lot of cash on hand. All of the funding happens on... Okay, one more thing for you to see. Here is the XRP ledger protocol, XLS66, as explained by Vet. This is one step closer to having all of DeFi's functions, like lending and borrowing. If I remember correctly, the plan release for XLS 66, 65, and 64 happened yesterday. All of these things work together to make it possible for 66, the lending protocol, and the XRP ledger to give and borrow natively. Doesn't it sound like a huge idea? Right now, it's just an idea. There is no code again. It's just an idea. The community is welcome to talk about what we want to do, which is also to talk about loans and borrowing on the XRP ledger. It's a money market to keep an eye on a term.